The black-eyed peas.
Low hanging.
That one's green. That scared me.
Hello, my handsome boy. Don't touch it.
Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. Thank you so much for joining me on another garden tour. If this is your first time meeting me, welcome to my greenhouse. We are nearing the end of the summer garden. So usually our summer garden lasts a little bit longer than this. Usually we are harvesting summer fruits and things well into September and sometimes October. I can tell you that's not going to happen this year. Things are really starting to die back. We've gotten weeks and weeks of rain. I wish I could send the rain to some of you like in Texas and other places that really could use it. For whatever reason, we've been getting a ton of it. It's been bringing a lot of disease our way and the plants are just done, which honestly it's okay. We've had quite a few really amazing harvests, and actually it's time for me to start a little bit of the fall garden. So we are going to run around and do our normal thing. We're going to look at the plants, we're going to do a little bit of harvesting, but I also wanted to get a little bit of planting done today. And before we get going with all the things today, I wanted to remind you that right now So Right Seeds is having one of their bigger sales of the year, their fall like clean out sale. This sale started on the 11th and it goes through the 18th, where you can get 15% off of all their seeds site-wide. And if you stack our coupon code, which is SageStone10, you get an additional 10% off. So you get 25% off of all of these seeds, and it makes some of the seed packets and some of the collections 75 cents each, which is incredible. I'm gonna put some information in the pinned comment and in the description box, and we're gonna get to planting. I am gonna start a couple green things, a couple leafy greens. Actually, I think there's 7 packets here for the fall garden. This ordinarily would be a little bit early for me to start things for the fall garden, at least out here in the greenhouse, and I may have to pull these seeds inside in a couple weeks if we start to see some warmer temps. But actually we have a temperature next week where our high is 74, which is insane for August for us. Usually we're much hotter than that, but I'll take it. So for now I am going to start these seeds here in the greenhouse and leave them out here, and I may have to pull them if it's going to get too hot, because these things are really not heat tolerant. These greens aren't. Well, one of them is. So rainbow chard is pretty darn heat and cold tolerant, but most of these things are going to just bolt and go to seed and just be really bitter if they get too hot. So I'm going to have to watch them. What I'm planting is rainbow chard, some pak choi. I brought out the Swiss chard. I don't know if I'm going to actually start this because I think I might stick with the rainbow chard for the fall and winter garden. Some lacinato kale, some arugula for a nice peppery addition to our salads, some spinach, Bloomsdale longstanding, and butter crunch lettuce. Now I thought I had pulled a mustard green out, and that might have been what happened. I might have pulled this instead of the mustard green. So I think I'll start the mustard greens later. We'll go ahead and get these in the cell trays now. And what I've got here is, gosh, what is it, 36? 1, 2, 3. So there's quite a few little cells here. These are only 1 inch by about 2 inches, and I can't keep the plants in this seed tray for long. So once they germinate, I really can only have about a maximum of 2 weeks in this small little space, but that's gonna be just fine. I actually have cleared out a lot of the raised bed garden, and we're gonna go over there and look at that in a little bit. These guys already have their place that they're gonna go. So I think I'm gonna start with the Swiss chard here. A general rule of thumb for planting seeds is you want to plant them twice as deep as they are wide. So these are some of the larger seeds that we're going to be planting today. They're pretty big. They're still not huge. I've got this little chopstick here that I'm going to use to make a like 1/4 inch deep hole, and then drop these guys down in. I'm going to do 1 seed per hole since I'm planting so many of them. Sometimes I'll plant more than 1 seed per hole just to make sure that I'm going to have for sure something germinating in each hole, but I'm not going to worry about that right now because we're planting quite a lot of little plants here. Pak choi, these are very small little brassica seeds. So these guys are not going to go as deep in the soil. And just by default, with these guys being so tiny, there's probably going to be more than 1 seed falling in the hole here, which is fine. Sometimes spinach takes a little bit longer to germinate than other seeds. A lot of these things will germinate because it's pretty warm outside still, probably within the week. Some stuff can take a couple weeks to germinate. When spinach germinates, it kind of looks like a couple blades of grass just poking up out of the soil. Their seedling leaves look totally different than like their true leaves, like the leaves that we eat, which I guess is true of most plants, but it's kind of bizarre to have it look like grass coming out. The arugula, these are real tiny, just like the pak choi. These actually might even be a little bit tinier. Got some kale. I think I'm only gonna put 6 of these in because I want to leave a little bit more space for my lettuces. Now, lettuce seeds are some of the tiniest seeds that there are, and some seeds do need light to germinate. This seed packet does not say that these need light to germinate, but they're so small that I'm really only going to cover them with a tiny bit of soil. So really, I've just scuffed up the top of the soil, and I'm going to sprinkle these on. So our seeds are all tucked in. Hopefully we've got a little bit of germination to show you next week. These are not the only things that I'm going to be planting for the fall and winter garden. I actually plan to fill up this entire greenhouse for the fall and winter. And I think maybe we're gonna get to doing that this week. Sometimes it's kind of up in the air when is a good time to put our seeds in the start trays for the fall and winter garden. Last year we had heat indexes well over 100 degrees into October, which was insane. This year has been a lot more mild, so I think right now is an okay time to start those seeds because I'm gonna want to be putting them in the greenhouse right around October 1st if I can manage it.
But for now, there's still a whole bunch of things going on in the greenhouse. Quite a few of our black-eyed peas are starting to get some disease, which does happen.
We've gotten a ton of food off of these plants. I actually wasn't aware that these black-eyed peas were going to put on several successions of blooms and that we would get several successions of peas, but it's been amazing. We have been pulling in lots and lots of peas every single week, and it looks like it hasn't slowed down. I gotta grab my harvest basket. Here's all the black-eyed peas for today. Now we gotta go over to the purple hull pink-eyed peas. So if we crack open the black-eyed peas, you can start to see their little namesake, the little cream-colored bean with this little black eye. And then with these purple hull peas, we have obviously a purple hull, and the eye on these is pink. Isn't that awesome? So this is our first year growing both varieties, and a lot of people will grow these purple hull peas. I think I like these ones best, not necessarily because of flavor, but they put on many more peas in their pods, and the pods seem a lot sturdier and they seem a lot more resistant to molding. You know, this row here of the purple hull peas doesn't look as lush as the row of black-eyed peas. I think the difference with that is this specific row was never amended from last year, and last year I grew a heavy feeding crop, lots of bell peppers and some jalapenos and some hot peppers all in this row, and so beans and things don't usually need a whole lot of rich fertile soil in order to produce, but it certainly doesn't hurt. Now I say that, and you don't necessarily want to place your beans in an area that already has a whole bunch of nitrogen, because what that's going to do is just produce a whole bunch of leaves and not as many pods. Beans are well known for being what's called a nitrogen fixer. So they have these little nodes on their roots that actually act to impart the nitrogen from the air into the soil. And these plants are even better at adding nitrogen to the soil if you go ahead and compost them down right in the beds where they grew when they're done. I will be amending these rows before I put the fall and winter starts in here. And I'm gonna do what I can to like sweep up all of these leaves that have fallen and take all these plants and put them down in the row and add some organic matter and that nitrogen back to the soil. So the last few weeks that I have done garden tours, I've done all of the bean picking off camera. That's because it is a little bit tedious and it is a little bit time consuming. But I don't want you guys to miss out on how beautiful some of these beans are and really how prolific our bean harvest has been. So you haven't gotten to see a whole lot of it. I had a goal this year of canning up at least 25 quarts of beans, and I'm happy to report that I think after this harvest, my goal will have been met. Some of the beans that are in here are really starting to kind of peter out with their production. That's absolutely okay.
I still have 12 of these Kalima bush beans growing in here.
There's quite a few down this row over here, and these guys will be producing until I'm ready to put the fall crops in here, and so we're gonna well exceed our canning goals with beans, and that makes me super happy.
And now a funny thing that I noticed is this little plant right here. So this plant is a lima bean.
And I planted a few lima beans in this row before our estimated last frost of the springtime. So these beans have been in here a really long time, and I've already gotten what I thought was everything that I was gonna get off of these beans. And I didn't have anything else to put here, so I didn't. I picked everything off of them, and they have started up again, producing beans.
So this plant that kind of went dormant during the heat of the summer is starting to put on tons and tons of these little flowers. If we come down in here and look, it's definitely more lima beans. Look at that.
So lo and behold, we'll have some more lima beans. These beauties in here, these are the dragon tongue bush beans. I have been growing these since 2019, every single year since then. They're just gorgeous. Now, they don't hold up super well to being canned. They are a little bit softer than maybe some other beans, but I still really enjoy them. I have also frozen these guys. And one of the cool things about them is this purple striping. When you cook it, it turns green.
Got a little okra to get.
So the spaghetti squash and a couple little tromboncinos have been curing really well over here. I picked these probably about 10 days ago, and they're already a lot more yellow than they were last week.
Now I did notice kind of an unfortunate thing, that it looks like there may be something trying to bore inside my squash. It was at least two of the squash. There's this one here, and then there's this one here.
So I know that I really need to probably use those ones first and possibly have to feed those to the pigs if there's like a little wormy growing inside of it. Not that it would be the worst thing to kind of like dig a bug out and just cook it and eat it. But also the outside of the fruit there is compromised. So like anything, including little bacteria and things, could be getting into that fruit and making it go bad, and we probably won't risk it. I don't know if you noticed it while we were walking around harvesting beans and black-eyed peas today, but the greenhouse is closed up. We've had some decent weather, as in windy weather, but honestly, we were in here during, you know, the end of the day where it's usually pretty hot. It's only 76 in here. It's kind of crazy. I am going to close the greenhouse back up because we are getting some more weather tonight. Now the sun is starting to come out a tiny bit, and so it'll heat up in there a little, but not enough to matter.
So let's give the lane a good once over before we check out the changes in the raised bed garden. As I mentioned last week, I am starting to just let these cucumbers go to seed.
I'm not going to be collecting seed from every single one of these cucumbers. We're just cucumbered out in our family. We're done. I don't want to rip out those plants quite yet because they're still growing a little bit of food. Even if we don't eat it, our animals can eat it.
Well, honeydews look like they're starting to get ready.
No, not quite. I've had a couple questions about how to tell if honeydews are ready to pick, and it's kind of hard to tell. I mainly go by smell, but you can also tell by the color of the rind. It's going to lighten up pretty significantly, but it also will start to really smell good, like smell like a melon and not like a cucumber.
The melons here on the lane really have seen better days.
As I've been talking about, it's been quite rainy here, so the disease has kind of been running rampant. We've had a lot of cracked melons. See, this one actually fell off. This might have just been in the wind that we got earlier. See, there's a little bit of cracking here. This one might be ready. It's really hard to tell with honeydew.
Oh, it's easier to tell with melons like this guy. This is a Minnesota midget.
These melons we've really enjoyed. They're a lot like a little personal sized cantaloupe. They're very resistant to cracking, and that's been super important for us this year.
That one looks good. Good evening, boys. Hi. Tromboncinos are looking closer and closer to being harvested every single week.
I've had a couple tromboncinos fall off in windstorms, but these guys look okay. They are getting of proper color, and they'll probably be harvested pretty soon.
This armpit melon, you can't really see it, but I can feel it. It's cracked with some buggies. Yum. This melon actually got stuck in the fencing here, and so that contributed to its demise for sure.
There it goes. Smells good. I'm not gonna eat it.
It's not for you. No melons for goats. Hmm. Good morning. How are you, sweetie?
Levi's actually trying to get dinner together, and part of dinner is going to be some fresh corn, so I've got to get that picked.
So everything looks very different here in the raised bed garden. I've taken out the sunflowers rather crudely.
And I really needed to tame this birdhouse gourd. It had started to take over both sides of the U-shaped bed.
Over here on this side, it had crawled completely over, and it was really starting to even overtake the blackberries, which was pretty crazy. But our little cucamelons here are doing pretty well regardless. And I noticed we had a cucamelon on.
So these are also called Mexican sour gherkins if you're looking for the seeds. These volunteered here from last year and maybe even from the year before. I can't remember if I intentionally planted them here last year or not, but these guys produce prolific amounts of these little tiny, like lemony, cucumbery flavored fruits. They're a really delicious, lovely little garden treat. I actually took a video last year where I fermented those guys, and at the end of this video I'll link it.
Coming into the archway, a lot of these birdhouse gourds are pretty low hanging,
which is a good thing because I have hit my head on several of these trying to walk through here, but right now they're in my line of sight, so I haven't hit my head in a long time.
You can see now this bed where we used to have our peaches and cream corn, I have cleaned it out and it looks great. This is where I'm going to put those things that we started. I had some zinnia in here that I'm sure were getting buried by the corn, so I don't even know if you guys have seen that. Got some yellow ones that fell over in the storm that we had earlier, but those will be fine.
This will be our first harvest of the Bantam sweet corn. I haven't gotten a chance to open this up and see what these ears look like. Now, for being called a Bantam corn, this corn is quite tall, but it seemed to do well. It seemed to hold up to our heavy winds here much better than the peaches and cream corn. I'm not really sure of the reasoning behind that, but it's a good thing where it's windy. Oh no. So it looks all right, but we do have a little bit of these little wormies, which does happen. I think this is the corn earworm. Gross. You can see a lot of this like orange wormy poop. I don't know if this is one we're really gonna use for fresh eating. And the ears look a little strange. Let's open up another one. Now, we are growing this corn. I'm looking across the street because there's a huge monocrop cornfield across the street from us. It's probably 50 feet away from this corn, which supposedly is the correct distance to plant corn away from other corns. There's another one. Nasty bug. But anyways, you're supposed to plant different varieties of corn about 50 feet apart from each other, just so they don't cross-pollinate. And that's probably just for seed saving, but I've also heard that cross-pollination can affect the first year seed, the first year corn. So what's being grown across the street is probably GMO variety corn, and it's probably like a cereal corn. I don't know if that is affecting the way that these kernels are coming in or not, but it's something I'm gonna have to research a little bit more on. Yeah, it's interesting. That one's green. That scared me. Darn it. So, real cool thing, if you remember some of our garden tours from a lot earlier in the year, you might remember that we had some like volunteer potato plants growing right here. And I had suspected that they were like a purple molly variety. And when I took this corn out, I was able to harvest those potatoes. And I didn't have my camera on me at the time, but I did have my phone, so I got a good picture. We got a pretty decent haul of potatoes out of those plants, and that's pretty special. It's pretty cool. I think we are going to just eat them and not save them back as seed potatoes. Next year I plan to plant more potatoes. I didn't do that this year, but we got a little bit of a crop anyway.
There's wormies in the top of some of them. Okay. Do you see the yucky parts? Do you just want to feed them to the pigs and find something else? Okay.
I wasn't sure what he would think, if he would just kind of pick off the tops and be fine with eating it, but seems like he'd rather feed them to the pigs, which is okay. Corn earworm is one of those things that can be prevented. We didn't have issues with it on our peaches and cream corn. It's been a lot more wet the last couple weeks than it was when we were growing that peaches and cream corn. I have no idea if that has anything to do with it. But also our peaches and cream corn was several weeks ahead of that big monoculture that's across the street. And so when that started to kind of tassel, that's when the little earworm moths were probably drawn to the area. And then consequently, they were drawn to our little ears of corn as well. So the piggies will be happy though. Come here.
Gotta watch my fingers.
I really enjoy having pigs on the homestead, and we are going to be putting these guys in the freezer this October, and I thought about not raising pigs next year, but I don't know if I really want to do that. It's so nice to be able to give like wasted food a second life and turn it into bacon. I do have some beans out here in the raised bed garden as well. They're mostly contender bush beans, which this is my first year growing them, and they've been slowing down like a lot of my other beans, but it looks like they're starting to get a little bit of a second wind. I'm seeing a lot more flowers coming on, so I think we're gonna get another harvest out of these guys. For now though, we're just getting like onesie twosies, little bits, little tiny harvests here and there. And I have noticed with this particular variety that it doesn't really matter if they get pretty big like this one. There's still, look at that, a significant amount of meat on the inside, and the seeds are still pretty tiny.
I've heard a story, I've heard it said, I've come to believe that love is a bet. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and sometimes it calls you right in the room. Come to my table, come to my bed, go easy my hunger, easy my head, bringing me fire, bringing me water, taking me high, taking me down. Give me your pretty, give me
So I've noticed a lot of our Sugar Rush peach peppers are starting to get their lovely peachy color.
I think I'm actually gonna leave these on today. I plan on making a video, a highly requested video, about how we make our fermented hot sauce. Doesn't look like there's very many peppers to harvest this afternoon. I did harvest quite a lot of peppers earlier. I had some of Levi's sisters over for a monthly tea. It was lovely, and we ate some peppers. So that's it for the garden for this week. Things really are starting to noticeably slow down. The summer garden is coming to a close, but honestly, my favorite gardening time is the fall and winter garden when it works out well. Last year, a couple critters ate down all of the starts that I put in the greenhouse, and we're hoping that doesn't happen this year. So stay tuned to the channel. I am going to be starting the seeds for our fall and winter garden, the things that we're going to be putting in the greenhouse this week. So look out for that video, and I'll see you there.